Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakingchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, and I am so delighted to be here with a dear friend of mine, Amy Kemp. Welcome to our show, Amy.
Oh, thank you. I love the books Anne of Green Gables, and I always feel like you're a kindred spirit, just like in the country right above me. Like we're on this creative journey together. So I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So for those that don't know Amy, I want to do a formal introduction. I'm going to read your bio so everybody knows the brilliance that you're going to share and how lucky we are to connect with you. So Amy is the owner and CEO of Amy Kemp, Inc. In her work within this growing company, Amy helps leaders and business professionals understand how deeply thought habits impact every part of their work and lives. As a certified habit finder coach, Amy has led over 400 female business leaders through a 4-month small group engagement called Encounter. This experience is designed to help clients replace subconscious thought habits that are no longer serving them with more healthy ones. She has worked through the Habit Finder curriculum with hundreds of leaders in one-on-one settings and with leadership teams at small and large companies. In addition, Amy teaches 2 engaging online courses each year in the fall and spring that are designed to challenge and expand her clients' understanding of themselves and to welcome new, curious people into the scope of her work. Some of the most popular topics in her library of offerings are money is a mirror and a boundary is not a wall. Finally, with the launch of her first book, I See You, a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more without more work. Amy has created an opportunity for everyone to learn and engage with her and the principles that guide her coaching. You can learn more about Amy and her body of work at www.amykemp.com. While her business and professional accomplishments are many, Amy counts all of it as a loss if she doesn't invest her best time and energy in leading and loving those closest to her in Kemp Nation, her family. She has been married to Ryan for over 20 years, and they have 3 children, Avery, Anthony, and Andrew. Welcome to our show, Amy.
Thank you. I'm laughing because the big news in Kemp Nation is that my 8th grade son purchased cologne, which he has a girlfriend. So we've been cracking up all weekend. He's doused himself this morning to go to school. So all of the people at his school now have a headache from his newfound love life.
Yes, right? It's so fun. Yes, I have a son who's in grade 8 too. So I understand. He also he got cologne this year for Christmas. So I feel you. It's a new thing and it's exciting.
A new era of parenting.
Yes. Amy, one thing I love about you is I always, when I met you, I just felt like you were just real and genuine and you help people and you lead people and you serve people and you specialize in women. I'd love for you to kind of talk to me about the biggest freaking change you've made in recent years. I know you went from a very promising corporate career into launching your own business, which is always hard. A lot of fear can come up and it's a big freaking change. So I'd love to start with that kind of where you were and where you are?
Absolutely. I think that transitions, particularly for leaders, are very tenuous and important times in our journey. And the transition that I went through about 8 years ago, and I did not want it. Even if you would have asked me at the time, I probably would have said, can you please just let me go back to being totally content with where I am so that I don't have to walk through what I know is ahead. On the other side, I'll make it sound easy and simple, but at the time walking through it, it was really difficult because I was leaving a career where thousands of people looked to me for not only leadership and guidance on what they were doing, but kind of as a confirmation that what they were doing had great purpose. They saw me as sort of like an example. And so I knew that my decision to leave and to do something new would have a real impact and kind of shake the foundation of their own belief. And that was really difficult because I had authentically invested in my team for so long. That's one of the things about the change was that I knew the change wasn't just mine. It was going to impact so many people. I didn't do it without a lot of thought, a lot of, I don't know, introspective time where I really made sure that I was not listening to all the voices out there, but that I could really hear my own. And I also know that I cried a lot. It was difficult. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was a really hard thing to do. And I invested in coaches that walked with me through that as well. I needed a place where I could actually process all the feedback I was getting and then be able to move from this very sort of, I was at the top of the mountain world into this new and unknown
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial journey that I sort of stumbled into by accident and didn't really have a long-term strategic plan. It just sort of unfolded. So yeah, the change was both external, but more importantly, it was what was happening inside of me. I could no longer, once I felt I was in a transition, I could no longer do the other work. It almost became like I just dreaded it. The things that I used to love is so crazy because I didn't want to feel that way.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like your energy shifts, right? When you have an awakening or a
Mm,
knowing or an intuition or a calling or God or divinity, it's like you can't unknow it anymore. Once you know it, you have to move forward or it like sucks your soul. And I talk a lot about energy. So it sounds like you went through
mm,
a lot of energy changes as well.
mhm.
And I love that you mentioned the importance that your decision was going to be a ripple effect on many different people. And I think as employees, sometimes they think it's easy for us to make these changes or shifts, and as leaders, they don't see the pain and the struggle before we make the jump. And it's often a hidden part that we show up one way, but on the inside it's like there's so much processing and thoughts and all of that. Amy, I know you specialize on thought habits, and one quote in your book, I was reading it and I was like, wow, this is so profound. I might not have it word for word, but basically it says, if you stifle your intuition in one area of your life, you can't expect it to show up in others. And when I read that, I was like, wow, this is so profound. Like even just saying it right now, I got goosebumps, because I think as women and as leaders, particularly, we can compartmentalize and we're like, okay, we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. And, we do all the things, but we are one person at the end of the day. Talk to me about how you came to this realization and what it means and how you've helped people with this.
Yeah, this is so great of a question right now. I'm just coming off of a client conversation where we were talking about, as a leader, the client I was working with was a business owner. You know those soundboards where, you turn up the volume of one thing and
Mm,
down on another, and you're kind of, there's someone doing all of that maneuvering. That's sort of what you're doing as a leader. It's like, what voices is your intuition telling you to listen to, and turning those up, and then what voices do I need to turn down and just sort of not listen to, right? But all of that is just intuitive. It's not like
mm,
there's no guidebook or anything like who should I pay
yes.
attention to, or so anyhow, it's really interesting timing that we're having this conversation right now. But basically, I think the fastest way to explain the concept is through the story I tell in the book of my client who was raised in a home with a mom who was an addict. And from a very young age, this client of mine basically took care of all of the adult things in their home. She made sure there were presents at Christmas, and she made sure people had permission slips signed and took care of her siblings. And she actually did a really great job of it. But along the way, her intuition was saying, I shouldn't have to do this. This isn't my job. I'm only 14 or 15 or 16. And she had to override her intuition in order to survive. And there is no criticism or no judgment in doing that. There are so many times where we need to do that to survive. The problem is when you fast forward 25 years and she's running a business and she's learned to override her intuition, the thing that tells you as a business owner, I'm tired and it's time to be done with the day, is your intuition. The thing that says, I've worked enough. I've done enough for this day, is your intuition. And she had no access to it because she had overridden it for so long. So when you take a survival mechanism and you employ it past the point of needing it, so she no longer needed it to survive, it becomes detrimental and harmful. And that's what happens. But I see it a lot. Even women do this with how much they work. That's a huge one. Like over giving, what's an appropriate amount of time and energy to give to anything. But also even in simple things like food, we don't have any intuitive guidance about, am I hungry? Am I full? Like we're so out of touch with what our bodies are telling us that we're trying to make a mental decision about things like food. And by the end of the day, when your mind is tired, you're not going to make great choices.
Mm-hmm.
And so that if you override your intuition in one area, it's not like then you just get to flip a switch when you get into another and then have access to it. It's like, no, that's like a muscle and you've kind of covered it up or not used it for a long time. And so it takes time to reawaken it and then be able to trust it.
To
and
trust
say,
it,
like,
yeah.
that's enough, or I've had enough, or I've worked enough, or and really be able to use that. Or like I said earlier, am I going to listen to this group of employees, or am I going to trust my gut feeling over here that's saying we need to move forward in this direction in spite of their resistance? Or am I going to listen to this complaining loud voice in my life? Or am I going to listen to this quiet whisper that's saying, come this way, come this way, come this way? So
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's so much power in your message and your book, I See You, because it is this area of life, like you mentioned in the book, generations have shifted and we are shifting, but women still predominantly do the household chores and all the, I think you call it like unpaid. What do you call it? Yeah, unpaid labor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so true. And when I read it, I felt kind of inspired and less guilty. And I don't even know why I should feel guilty, but I have a cleaner that comes every 2 weeks and like does all my deep cleaning, right? So I don't do any of that. And it just gave me this like moment of like, of course I should have a cleaner, but you need somebody else to tell you that it's okay and it's needed. And I love that you speak on your energy sources and, how much time and energy am I going to give to certain areas in my life? And it's so important because how we show up with our energy is our currency in life. It's how people experience us. It's how, if we do all the things but we have no energy, we have no quality of life. But yet we push and push and push. And yesterday, I guess my mind was really tired because I like pigged out on a whole bunch of chips.
That's okay every now and again, just for fun.
Yeah, that's right. For fun. I was like, man, I just can't stop eating. But we all have that. So thank you for the work you do, Amy. I really think it's so valuable. Talk to me about intuition and what that is. I think there's a disconnect and sometimes a misconception on what intuition is versus ego versus other people's voices. We're programmed with our parents and I know it could be a coworker, a partner, and we have to really get still to go, is this my voice? Is this my wisdom? Is this my knowing or a distraction? So I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And the work I do is largely involves subconscious habits of thinking. So these are things that you don't even know they're happening. It's like below the surface, but it's impacting the way that you're showing up. So, and this is connected to intuition. I'll give you an example. The gym is full.
Yes.
Go right now,
Yeah.
But there's a habit of thinking, a subconscious habit of thinking that's an obligation. And it says, I have to, I need to, I should. So if you're operating in this subconscious habit of thinking, it's saying, I have to go to the gym. I really need to go to the gym. I really should go to the gym. And then you kind of at some point rebel against that and say like, no, I'm not, I don't want to, I'm not going. And then you feel guilty. And so then you recommit and then you go right back to like have to, need to, and should. And when we do that it's exhausting. It's
Mm-hmm.
futile. You never win. You just continue to ride that merry-go-round in that cycle. But a lot of it is happening and you're not even aware of it. So I always challenge people to just pay attention. Oh, I need to take the garbage out. I have to do this. Oh, I really should call this person, or I really should go, whatever, make this appointment. And even for women, a lot of it's connected to unpaid labor. We have all of
Mm-hmm.
this guilt around what our role is and what makes us a good parent or a bad parent or a good
Mm-hmm.
wife or a bad wife or a good
Mm-hmm.
woman or a bad woman, based on just cultural messaging. I
Yes.
couldn't get anyone. I mean, it was really difficult to find someone to give me a quote about having someone clean their house.
Mm.
People were
Wow.
embarrassed or they didn't want me to tell anyone. And I'm
Wow.
like, you're running one of my clients, she's running like a 12 or a 15, I think it's a $15 million account right now. Well, what,
Yes.
what
It's a
man would,
disconnect. Yeah.
like, what man would do that and then come home and think they should also do all the laundry, all the cooking, all the cleaning, or they would be a bad husband? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When you flip
When
it,
you flip it, it's crazy.
it's really great. And that's no critique against men. I actually think
Mm-hmm.
they're just smarter. Like they're not even going to try to do that. They're not going to feel
Wow.
like they have to or need to or should. They're just going to say that's not even possible. And
Yeah.
so that's an interesting twist. But yes, I have so many women who feel so just validated by the factual evidence of no wonder I'm so tired. No wonder my
Mm-hmm.
business isn't growing at the pace of this other person who has a full-time person taking care of all the unpaid labor in their world. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that or me. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the reality of how much energy you have. So,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
I love this conversation because I think there in my book I talk a lot about the differences between men and women, and you focus on women. Do you see a lot of differences in mindset and intuition between men and women?
yes. And it's interesting because a lot of men who read my book say, well, this is good for men too.
Yeah, I'm getting that right now and I'm like, "Oh, yes. Well."
But I say back to them, well, so are the 90% of business books written by and for men.
Yeah,
Are
true.
good for me too. I learned so much. So I'm not saying you're not welcome here. I am highlighting and focusing on the experiences that are different for
Yes.
women. And I think there's just an absolute overabundance of messaging that we're raised with that pushes against our progress in different ways than it
Mhm.
does for men,
Mhm.
better than it used to be. And then just some realities of getting a tiny human from birth to age
Yeah.
5 it's an extraordinary feat.
Yes. Yes, and, like, you're the mom who has 3 kids. I'm the mom with 3 kids. I remember calling you and getting some business advice and just, heart to heart. And I really valued our conversation because you see me, you get me, you
Mm.
understand the day-to-day, you understand the grind. I think as a high achieving person, regardless if you're a male or female, there's some struggles that go with that, right? Of like, when is enough? When do you kind of stop? When is your time done? And I think it comes down to giving ourselves permission
Mm.
that we are enough, we are worthy, regardless of what we're doing, and to release. So when we're talking about the progress of women
Yeah.
specifically, so the United Nations produced a report last year that said we are still 286 years away from experiencing gender equality. And when I read that, I'm like, there's no way. Like we're still that far behind. And it blows my mind. And it inspires me to take bolder action. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and I want my daughter to know you can have a family, you can work, you can go out with your girlfriends, you can do all the things you want. And I also want my sons to know that it's really great to have an empowered wife, right? Who's going to do these things because it's going to enrich their lives. But I still think that there's so much work that we need to do. And in your perspective, I know you have a daughter as well. What are the things you tell her so that she's getting that ingrained in her at a young age so that she does move move society forward.
286 years.
Can you believe that? I had no idea. I could not believe that.
I mean, both yes and no. It feels
Mm.
staggering and it feels true.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many of those years we could shave off also just by eliminating all of the self doubt, self condemnation, all of the unhealthy habits of thinking that women impose upon themselves that aren't even restrictions from outer. I just wonder if we could speed that up. Maybe that drives a lot of my work also.
Yes.
One, I think that my role as a mom it's an interesting thing because the people who haven't read my book live in my house.
Right.
Because here I'm really not that big of a deal.
So funny.
I am just mom.
Yeah.
And I kind of want it that way. I want them to not, I'm just a person
Yeah.
but I do also make sure that I'm modeling a prioritization of my career, my needs alongside my husband's, which sometimes is difficult because who takes the day off when someone's sick? That was always the conversation, right? He has a traditional job. So it was easier for me as an entrepreneur who was at home to just take the day. And I really made it a point of saying, like, if I'm taking a day, you're taking a day. Or we're going to share who's taking the kids to the doctor's appointments. Or I still probably do more of the unpaid labor, things that I want to do, planning parties and gift buying and things like that. But I've really worked so that my kids see a shared distribution of that kind of thing. And also that I am creating boundaries around my work that
Mm.
protect it, even if it's at the expense of me being at something that is theirs, at times.
Mm.
They're not doing the activity for me, they're doing it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that they are now I feel pretty good about two of my three. The third's still a wild card, but I
Yeah.
have a 21-year-old. She's pretty independent and kind of on to being an adult. And what I feel great about is that my constant availability didn't cripple her. She's very
Mm.
independent, very resourceful because I can't go do that. I'm working, or there are things
Mm-hmm.
that kids, she had to make her own appointments.
Mm-hmm.
She had to follow up with, when the school needed this or that, she had to figure that stuff out. And sometimes I think we're too available
Mm.
out of this messaging that we've gotten about what our role is instead of just letting them figure it out.
I
One of
love that
my really
lesson.
good friends who's a really good parent, she calls it free range parenting.
I love it. We got to label it.
Yes. But just like
Yeah.
let them
Let them.
make some mistakes. Let
Yeah.
them figure it out. Don't
Yeah.
answer the call right away. Don't be available all the time.
Well, that's such a good, it's almost like a permission to not feel guilty when you can't, right? Because there's so much guilt. I know I have that too when I can't, when I have an opportunity to go do something
Mhm.
really great for my career, or should I be here at a dance competition or a soccer game? And,
Right.
you have these decisions.
Yeah. I've decided also guilt will not be a part of any decision making in my parenting. I will make intentional choices and I will live with the consequences. But I am not going to make a choice to be somewhere and then feel guilty. So then I'm not present at the place where I am and I'm
Yeah.
not at the place where I'm feeling guilty about. Like that just
Yeah.
feels like a colossal waste of time to me. And
Yes.
I just made a decision one day like I'm letting that feeling in.
Mm.
And that's not who I am. I
Mm.
don't operate that way in any other area of my life. And so I'm going to choose this with very clear intention. And it could be the wrong choice. I don't know. There could,
Yes.
but I'm going to live with my choice. I'm going to own it and then not divide my feeling of presence. I'm just going to be there fully.
Mm.
And then
That's
when I'm
really
at
good.
home, I'm going to be there
Yes.
fully. And
Yes.
I feel like that has served me well and just saved a bunch of energy. It's just a
Yes.
waste.
It's a waste of energy. Amy, what are some of the similarities that you experience when you're talking about unhealthy thoughts that women are carrying? There must be some. I always think that we are more similar than we are different, but we don't talk about the insecurities enough, what goes
Hmm.
on in our minds.
Hmm.
So, in the 400 women that you serve, there's got to be some
Hmm.
commonalities. Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
They have a hard time recognizing their own natural genius and they have a hard time valuing it. So in the material I use with my clients, there's this sentence. It says, "You are rare and there is value in all rarity. Therefore, you are valuable." Like
Yes.
when I look at you, I think if someone with your unique leadership gifts, your brain, your charisma, your vision would put your time and energy toward something that tens of thousands of people could do, that would be not being a good steward of your unique talents. So it's like that kind of falls into the same thing with the unpaid labor also, where it's like you need to make sure if you have gifts that are rare
Yeah.
and not a lot of people have them, that you steward those gifts and you use them to create what you are on this world to create. And don't allow yourself to get sucked into things that aren't your gifts, but they're
Yes.
someone else's. You can pay someone else to do that, right? And they love it and it is their gift.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean one person is more valuable than the
Right.
other. It just means we have to really understand our natural genius and the value of it so that we can protect it and use that and not get sucked into trying to do all of the things really well.
So
Yeah,
good.
that's so important.
So important. And I think for myself too, if we're good at something and it comes natural,
Ugh.
we don't think it's as valuable. We're like, oh, it's no big deal. This is just what I do. And then someone's like, how did you whip those questions together? Or how did you? And it's
Ugh.
just who we are. And so it's second nature, right? It's just show
What
up that
comes
way.
easy to you that astonishes everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
I tell this story in my book of one of my clients. She was a project manager at an engineering company, and she had this building in her yard she wanted to make into like a community center. I said, "Well, why don't you put your project management skills and just apply it to this transformation of this building? Like, why don't you actually just create the process? That's what you do. Like, that's your
Mm-hmm.
natural genius." And so we hung up from our call, and not kidding, like 30 minutes later, she sends me this poster and it's got post-it notes from start to finish. Start was like barn that looks like a crack house. That's what it said. All the way down to like this vibrant functioning space that can be
Mm.
used, right? And she had all the steps. And I said to her, "Do you know that's not normal? Do you know that like most
Yes.
people can't
Can't do
do that?" But
that.
to her, it was just like,
Yes.
"Well, duh, okay." And she went and
Yeah.
did it. The other thing is because it feels so easy, we undercharge for it.
Oh, yeah. I talk about passion to dance studio owners specifically when they discount their services, and a lot of them don't make money and they have full-time jobs and they're like, it's okay because I'm just so passionate about it. And I said, no, passion is a premium because it's the energy people experience in your presence, and people should pay more for that because you can't manufacture that. Some people don't have passion and you have passion, but it's a mindset shift. So, Amy, when you're working with people that undervalue themselves personally or professionally, where do you start with them?
Well, that's a really interesting example because a lot of the people that do that tend to be in the arts, or they have gifts that they don't. Well, even myself, I thought everyone could facilitate conversations with small groups of women and really get them to like go
Yeah,
deeper together. I didn't know that not everyone could do that. I didn't
right.
know that was so unique or
Yeah.
valuable, or that I could charge for it, and that people were so hungry for it, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes it's just ignorance. Like it's just like this ignorance of, oh, I never even knew.
Hmm.
But there's also this little bridge of faith you have to kind of walk over where you say, "I'm going to charge for this amount, and I'm going to get negative feedback about that. People are definitely going to be having their experience with that choice, and I'm going to move forward regardless." And some people the most vocal people usually at first are negative in their response to it. But there's also a quiet group of people saying, "Good for you.
Mm.
Good for you." And those are your friends. Those are your people, right?
Yes.
The ones who say, "Yes, you are worth it. Don't apologize. That's an exceptionally valuable offering that you are making to the world.
Yes.
People will pay for that." But those people are usually quieter. They're around,
Hmm.
but they're quieter. And they're usually so engaged in their own creative pursuits that they're not even paying attention, or
Hmm.
they're not like judging you.
Right.
right?
Yes.
So I think with that, it's very dependent on the person, but there is just a step of faith where you just have to say, it's going up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have an experience with that, and you're going to have an experience, and you are, and you are, and you are. And that's okay. And that's really none of my business.
You call it a bridge of faith, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about flexing our courage muscle before we
Mm-hmm.
do anything big. So
Yep.
often women and men, we wait to feel more confident before we take action. And we develop our confidence through action. It's the result of taking action. Talk to me about how you would explain courage and
Mm-hmm.
also how you would explain confidence. I'd love to know your
Yeah.
opinion.
I feel like it's funny that we have a lot of similarities, but we're also different because I feel so scared by a big change.
Yes. Yes.
But I am relentless in the pursuit of tiny daily change.
Yes.
And so I have created big change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you would have told me, but I work with people who are inspired by the idea of a big change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrified,
Yes.
but I am deeply committed to the tiny millimeters.
Yes.
And then I end up creating big change.
Yeah. And
I
that's
think we
always
get,
how it is. Yeah.
yeah, maybe we get to the same outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to coach myself through it differently. But I
Mm-hmm.
have clients who I know if I said, just focus on the tiny millimeters, they'd be like, how boring. I don't even want to
Mm.
work then. To me, courage is standing in the face of resistance, negative feedback, even data saying, I'm not sure this is a good idea. And knowing all that's there and saying, yes, and we're going to move forward. This is making me think we had a big bond referendum that was on a ballot for our schools. And I led the committee that talked to the community about it. It's a huge improvement in our school building,
Mm-hmm.
$70 million.
Wow.
And at the first meeting, everyone kept like, oh, it's not going to pass. It hasn't passed before. People aren't going to vote yes to raise their taxes. It was just this preponderance of evidence that we shouldn't move forward. And I remember at the first community meeting, I just said, when I was a young leader, I remember this feeling of like, yeah, but what if we try? Yeah, but I know that, but what if we try? And I remember just thinking, but what if? But what if? But what if we could? But what if our kids were worth it? But what if we believed it was possible? But what if? And I said, I know the older I get, the harder it is for me to access that because I have had so many experiences where I know the realities of things. I was like, for just a second, can we as a community suspend that and say, but what if just our kids were worth it? And fortunately, we had an amazing committee and it passed
Wow.
resoundingly. Resoundingly.
That's
Like
amazing.
it was so amazing to work together with a group of people for such a cause. So that's an example of like a big freaking change for our community, but
Yes.
it happened through like one conversation at a time. And even just one person saying, yeah, but what if?
Mm-hmm.
What if we didn't accept that it's 284 years?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that.
Right? Like what if? What would we do differently if we didn't accept that? What would we try? What would we not need to be perfect about, but we just do it? What would we create?
That's so inspiring. Amy, as we wrap up today, I'd love for you to kind of share your biggest tips or inspiration for our listeners when they are on that bridge and they have self-doubt and they're wondering, do I take the leap?
Well, I talk about this in the book too. There's a video on YouTube. It's from when they were greenlighting The Greatest Showman, the movie.
Yes. Yes.
If you haven't ever watched it, just search for The Greatest Showman, This Is Me, and it's like a behind the scenes view of when the investors were deciding whether they were going to make this movie. And the Kiala Settle, the singer of This Is Me, she's like terrified,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a moment when she's singing even where her hand starts to shake and she like falters, her voice kind of falters, and she reaches out and like grabs the hand of Hugh Jackman and just like clings to it for dear life. And there were so many times in the creation and still today in the creation and promotion of my book, of my business, where like my hand gets a little shaky, or I'll have a week where I'm like, well, I don't know if this was a
Mhm.
good idea,
Yes.
But almost always in that time, if I look around me, there's someone with their hand outstretched, and I can just say, I'm a little scared. I'm not sure. And they will just take my hand. And it was multiple people. It has been multiple people along the way, but they have just said to me, like, go, you can do this right when I needed it the most. So I just would say, don't be an island. Nobody creates anything on an island. Reach your hand out, tell someone who's also in the journey of creation, and let them just hold your hand for a minute and kind of right your ship, and so that you can move forward again.
And the power of community, right? Like
Mm.
reaching out, asking for support, giving support, and having that courage to ask for support can be hard, and we got to make it. So, Amy, thank you so much for being here today. Where can everyone check out your offering? I know your book is available on Amazon. I'd love for you to share where everyone can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon, Audible, if you're a listener, I did record it in my voice. And then amykemp.com is where you can find, there's actually a really cool book link there also with some extra resources. There's a fun video I recorded with the very first readers of the book. It's kind of Oprah style that you can
Awesome.
watch there. So that's the best place to find me and to learn more about my work.
Awesome. Well, thank you for serving in the way you do. You've always been humble, straight up, kind, creative, heartfelt. I feel like you're a really heart-centered leader and you see women. So thank you for all your words of wisdom to me, and thank you for writing your book. And for all of our listeners, remember to make a big freaking change. Take the necessary steps, whether they're small or large. Follow the cycle of change model, and you will be amazed once you start trusting in your intuition, you manage your mindset, limiting beliefs, and you find your power. Thanks, everyone. Have a beautiful day. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.